What does he have to do with this?
Let anything, you know what I'm talking about. Let anything. Nah, I don't have to say it right now. Don't worry about it. I don't got to say it up here. Let anything happen. And I'm going to show you and him back.
In shape, 145.
Yeah.
In shape. You know what I mean? So this is different from a Crawford coming up to 168, but we know his walk around weight is probably 170, 180.
That I couldn't believe, that was too insane and honestly just baffling to think would be a real fight in 2025. Remind you that combat sports are the craziest sports on the planet.
There was a lot of chaos at the press conference for the Gervonta Davis versus Jake Paul fight. What began as mere hype escalated into a genuine brawl. When asked why he chose to fight Paul instead of someone higher in rank, Davis lost his temper. At the same time, Paul jumped on personal issues and made fun of Davis's background, which made things more heated until moderators stepped in.
Box, and truly when people run back this press conference, all the shit talk, all the fun, they're gonna be like, wow, this kid really is doing something monumental in the sport, and he's actually an insane boxer. And I'm gonna show that this guy who's been doing it his whole life has been doing it wrong his whole life.
What'd you say, Tank?
He said he gonna outbox me. Whoop-de-doo.
The one thing, when you have a fight of this magnitude, especially with Jake, because his appeal has been global. For you, Tank, do you think this is one of those fights where now all of a sudden you can show your boxing skills on a global scale to maybe people who weren't interested in boxing? All of a sudden they say, well, who is this guy?
Yeah, it's actually like, you know, now that I'm looking at it now, it's just like, I don't know, probably.
The conversation was not welcoming from the start. With a height of 6 feet 1 inch, Paul towered over Davis's 5 feet 5 inches frame, a visible representation of the size difference that has been the subject of much pre-fight discussion. Paul used the difference in height and reach to his advantage to promote himself. He proudly said that Davis would not be able to reach him because he was longer and bigger. Davis, a lightweight champion who is used to facing shorter opponents, relied on his legendary speed and said that the difference in size would not matter when the fight got serious. The huge difference in size between the attackers was one of the main points of conflict. Many individuals, including prominent media figures, labeled the match as unfair or even a farce before it commenced. Davis, an accomplished and unbeaten lightweight champion, will fight a social media star who has become a professional boxer and naturally fights at much heavier weights. The fight is not a normal professional title fight. It is an exhibition instead. This adds to the case for credibility.
Won the fight. But yeah, that was that. This time, Jake Paul is to take on Tank Davis. Tank Davis, he was recently in the news for being arrested for a domestic violence incident involving one of his kids' mother. He was alleged to have slapped her about the place. The charges were later dropped, to be fair to him. But yeah, that was when he was last in the news. What is interesting is just a couple of months ago, Tank Davis was saying openly that he'd lost his passion for boxing and that he wanted time away from the sport. There was speculation that he might even retire as he was experiencing extreme mental fatigue from boxing, depression, and there were mental health concerns over him. However, I guess the opportunity to earn a truck full of money fighting a completely worthless exhibition fight against Jake Paul was enough to make him change his mind about boxing. Funny that, isn't it? But you know what? I'm not even going to waste your time or mine critiquing this utter nonsense. Suffice to say that this so-called fight we're talking about is an exhibition, and it pits Jake Paul, who is a cruiserweight, by the way, weighs in excess of 200 pounds, and Tank Davis, who is, he was the WBA lightweight champion, who weighs in at about 135 pounds when he fights. So that's a disparity of some 65 pounds. In old money, that's about 4.5 stone. There's also a significant difference in height. Jake Paul is roughly, 6'1", 2. Gervonta Davis is 5'5" at best. So, there's a height disparity there of some 8 inches. And once again, this is Jake Paul showing total disrespect to boxing, in my opinion. Once again, continued to pimp out the sport for his own financial ends. And worse still, the powers that be in boxing allowing him to get away with it and facilitating this utter bullshit. And meanwhile, what's even worse about this is that meanwhile, the WBA lightweight title that Tank Davis should be defending against Lamont Roach in a rematch, they fought.
It's no secret that Paul likes to make people laugh and act silly. And the press meeting was meant to make moments that go viral. The clown humor, the pushing, and the lawsuit claims are all mean. The mood was more like a reality show fight than a normal boxing news conference because of all the different parts. News reports say the news conference was mostly just a show and didn't have any real meaning or content.
I've seen that Jake will kind of bounce in between doing these entertainment fights and then, trying to push toward his goal of ingraining himself in the sport of boxing, and kind of does both of them. So it's kind of a weird place to be because he wants the respect of the boxing fans and the boxing hierarchy and hardcore boxing people, but at the same time, he'll gain some of that and then lose some of it. It's like a seesaw of his fights. Like one fight, and be like, okay, that's a real fight, or that's a real fighter. And he'll go and he'll win the fight. Julio Cesar Chavez, real fighter, maybe past his prime, whatever, but Jake goes and wins that fight pretty easily, and then gets a lot of respect, gets a lot of the boxing hardcore love. And you have these talks about him fighting Anthony Joshua, and that was going to get even more respect. More people were like, that's fucking crazy. What are you doing? Myself included. That seemed like a massive risk, but a lot of people were like, okay, fair play. Anthony Joshua, that's a real heavyweight. Jake wants to fight him. He's a psycho, but fair play. And then you announce this one, and it's like, well, that's the same thing people have been saying about Jake for years, so it's a weird spot to be in for him for sure. But I talked about this not being the first choice, and I don't think it was, because Coppinger reports next that talks for Jake Paul to face Anthony Joshua collapsed over network issues. Now, we had all heard the talks, and they were pretty public, from Eddie Hearn, from Jake. Nakisa Badarian, Jake's manager, was over in the UK on, I think, Sky Sports, talking about the fight and saying how it was a real...
Keith Thurman pointed out a very obvious irony. Gervonta Davis's comments help him. He's right, too. People who always say bad things about Davis's acts are also the ones who never miss his fights. The people who watch him box think he's not excellent, but they still do it every time he steps into the ring. Thurman says that people are making Davis more important and well-known by putting their attention on him, even if it is negative attention. Their concerns about him increase his visibility, turning them into unintended fans. To put it simply, the more they try to hurt him, the better his image gets.
Not happy with Tank. First off, don't watch Tank. Don't do it. You know what I'm saying? You support it, then what you doing? You can't not support and support at the same time, right? So if you're a boxing purist, then this fight with Roach is really more for you. It's going to be more up your alley, If you just like all entertainment, all fights, all hypes, all everything, then you're gonna want to tune in to the Tank and Paul show there, because that's all for entertainment. What's it? For entertainment purposes only, right? It should say like somewhere in the small print of the promotion. For entertainment, don't do this at home, kids. Fine.
Disclaimer.
Yeah, disclaimer. For entertainment purposes only. So it's money-making purposes only,
Stephen A. Smith was very upset about the recent trend of mismatched exhibition fights, such as Paul versus Mike Tyson. He said Paul was unhappy and even horrified, and he called out the mismatch more openly. He told Paul that he needed to fight against real people, not former athletes or stars who were past their best. Even though he didn't like Paul, Stephen A. did notice how well he promotes the sport and how much attention he pays to it. But he stressed that if he wants to build a name, he has to fight real boxing talent right now. Smith has also said some critical things about the controversial March draw between Davis and Lamont Roach. He stressed how important Davis's impressive record was and denied any idea that criticism was fair. He thought Davis was a real winner because he wouldn't back down when questioned or argued with. People saw his quick willingness to agree to a rematch as the sign of a fighter who was sure of his place and eager to show how dominant he was at the highest level.
Paul is a professional. At some point in time, I don't give a damn if it's a light heavyweight. Better BF, Bivol, a super middleweight, Canelo, Mexican Monster, David Benavidez, somebody that actually has a reputation. The time has come for Jake Paul to step into the ring with a cat who actually boxes for a living and give us that fight. I appreciate the fact of him promoting. I appreciate him having the cachet as a former YouTuber turned boxer. I like Jake Paul. I respect Jake Paul. I'm just saying, because I like him and because I respect him, I want to see him in the ring. And I don't want to hear, I know his numbers are better, but then he gonna say, I don't need Canelo, Canelo needs me. Well, wait a minute. It ain't just about pop.
He even put Davis in the top 3 boxers in the world and said excellent things about his power, skill, and knockout style. Tank is a world winner and a well-known boxing star. Jake Paul, on the other hand, is mostly known for his YouTube channel and is new to boxing. He used to work in show business. If a well-known and respected champion fights someone so inexperienced or weak, it could hurt his image. Smith thinks Tank should feel bad about this fight because he isn't good enough to win it. Thinks that Paul vs. Davis on Netflix will be a big hit, especially with younger people in the US. He says that while Canelo vs. Crawford will be exciting for fans in Mexico and Latin America, the Paul Davis show will be more popular in the US, especially with people under the age of 20. Romero thinks that both fights make boxing more popular, which is beneficial for the sport. He believes that Canelo vs. Crawford is the more compelling sporting match, while Paul vs. Davis is likely to attract a larger audience in the US.
We want to know, who will win this fight? Jake Paul or Tank Davis? It's a legit question. And I actually want to really hear your thoughts on who do you think is going to win. Because I know what Vegas is saying, but I want to know what you think. You got
Personally, I think Tank too little, bro.
Yo,
I think Tank too little.
I'm so glad you have a brain on your fucking shoulder.
I think Tank too little.
I said, bro.
I think Tank's too little. That's what I'm saying. I have weight classes for a reason.
Davis
That weight classes for a reason.
5'5", 135 pounds. Jake Paul is 6 feet, 205 pounds.
That's what I'm saying.
Bro.
He's too
6'1",
little.
205. Everybody's like, yeah, bro, but Tank going, it only takes one good punch. Yes, it takes one good punch when you're about the same size. There's a 60, 70 pound difference in weight in these people. I don't think nobody puts the physics in mind. Jake Paul gets punched in the face by dudes 200 pounds with all their might on a weekly basis. A 135 pound puncher, bro. If y'all remember the Mayweather versus Conor McGregor fight, Conor walks around like 180 on the regular. He's like 5'9", 180. Mayweather's like 5'7", 145. That 30 pound difference, bro. If you remember that fight, Mayweather was putting mittens on Conor. Guess what happened to Conor? He didn't hit the ground once.
No.
He lasted all 12 rounds getting hit with flurries. I'm talking about Mayweather was having his time. He's being cocky with it, hitting him with all kind of combos. And we're watching the last 3 rounds of that shit like, yo, knock him out. And you know what? He could not knock him out because Conor gets punched by people that are 170, 180 pounds on a regular. And just that 20, 30 pound difference, it was like impossible for him to do anything. And that's exactly what I feel like.
During the controversy surrounding Tank Davis's boxing match with Jake Paul, WBC lightweight champion, Shakur Stevenson sent a harsh message to Davis. Stevenson said that Davis's choice to seek a practice fight with Paul was beneath the sport and that if Davis really wanted to be taken seriously, he should fight a real opponent like himself. Stevenson was sure he was the best fighter in his class, so he challenged Davis to fight him instead and show him that he was right.
On Tank, what do you think about the rumors of Tank and Jake fighting?
Man, Tank disrespectful to the sport if he choose that over fighting with me. I'm the best fighter in the sport. I've been telling him that. He called cap on it. So if he won't call cap and say I'm not who I say I am.
Eddie Chambers, a former heavyweight rival, gave Jake Paul a harsh warning before his fight with Gervonta Davis. He said that Paul's normal opponents hadn't prepared him for what was to come. Chambers says Davis is quick, has knockout power, and is very good at being in the ring, qualities Paul has seldom encountered in a fighter. He said that most of Paul's earlier wins were over older or less skilled opponents. But Davis is a totally different kind of warrior. Chambers believes that Paul must significantly improve his performance, lest he expose himself to Davis's superior skills and fighting acumen under pressure.
Something like this can happen, but this is social media. This is what is created. There's a lane that Jake Paul has created. Honestly, I'm not mad at him for it. He's gotten a lot of fighters and, actual fighters some shine. It also has done for women's boxing a lot. So I'm not mad at him for what he's been in boxing and what he's created. This is a little crazy right here. This is a little crazy. And a lot of people will say, Tank is too small. Let me tell you something. Anybody that gets in the ring with Tank that is not a damn dinosaur is going to feel something from him. And it ain't going to be easy to hit it. Got boxing IQ. He may not sound like an intellectual guy when you hear him talk, but he knows the ring inside and out. So there's nothing that Jake Paul can do aside from make it extremely ugly by grabbing him and probably trying to throw him to the ground. I don't know what else, bite him. I don't know, but I mean, the skill level alone. Now, of course, there is a size difference, a height difference, and all that, but he's just going to struggle so much landing a shot. It's just going to look bad to me. This is the way I see it. It's going to look bad. Tank is going to be too fast. And the punch, I believe, I'm not saying it's going to knock him out but
experts have harshly attacked the fight between Jake Paul and Gervonta Davis, saying it is more of a show than a game. Many people think that the fight is more about the big money and the press than about real competition. Some people think it's a selfish and cartoonish circus where traditional boxing virtues like skill, honor, and tradition are put aside for money and fame on social media. They find this move disappointing as it contradicts the long history of the sport and the seriousness that once defined the sport.
Follow with you, I'm not a fan of this matchup at all. You got Gervonta Davis, who's been eating county jail spreads for the last month and a half, and he didn't look good in his last fight against Roach, where he had a draw, but most people felt like he got his ass tapped, so he needs the money. Then you got Jake Paul, who gets to beat on a nigga a whole foot shorter than him and 100 pounds lighter than him. And I think this is just nasty work. This screams money grab. And then you know what? The fans lose in the end on this one. Netflix wins, Jake Paul wins, and Tank wins. We lose.
One of the best things that promoter Eddie Hearn said about the Jake Paul versus Gervonta Davis fight was, it blurs the line between genuine sport and pure entertainment. Hearn said that boxing loses its essence when it turns into more of a show than a fight. Hearn thinks that this fight is more of a business stunt meant to get hits and pay-per-views than a great athletic contest. If these kinds of fights are accepted, they put boxing's credibility at risk because fans want drama for the sake of drama. Lots of people are upset about Jake Paul's upcoming game against Gervonta Davis. A lot of people say that the fight is a huge mismatch. Paul usually fights at 200 pounds, but Davis fights at 135 pounds, which has led to claims of weight bullying. Some critics say the difference makes boxing less legitimate, while others call it silly and compare it to amateur theater or even professional wrestling. However, there is a different story that says Davis is smart for putting money first and saying that he's not trying to please purists but to get a big paycheck.
Beat Jake Paul, shouldn't he?
No, he shouldn't.
But you don't think? Sorry. So, I thought we were all unanimous here. Do you think that you think Jake Paul beats Gervonta Davis?
70 pounds is 70 pounds.
Gervonta Davis is very small. 5'5".
He's tiny, bro. That's what I'm saying.
Jake Paul,
he's a little man.
If Jake Paul's tucking up,
move on,
and absorbing punishment for walking forward.
Do you believe that the fight between Davis and Paul will make boxing better or worse? Write something below.